Welcome to District 32, immersion, inspiration for ambitious business owners with big dreams.
Hello, my name is Lorraine Garvey of District 32, and I am really excited today to be sitting here with the absolute legend, Andrew Ford of Ford and Doonan. How are you, Andrew?
Very well, Lorraine. You'll give me a big head saying that.
Yeah, take it. So look, before we move on, I just want to introduce you today and what we're going to talk about. You co-founded Ford and Doonan Air Conditioning in 1985. You were 19 years old. You were just a couple of tradies, and you've grew Ford and Doonan into WA's largest air conditioning group. You've got 12 stores across the metro and the southwest. You've got revenue exceeding 60 million per annum. A lot of business owners out there are still pushing the first million, so that's definitely inspirational. But you're the managing director. You've built and managed employees that have peaked across 110 people. You've got a team of 70 in the franchise stores. And this made me laugh. In your spare time, you produce your own podcast show, you manage fast growth business owners, and you train every day at your hobby business, Excess Fitness in South Perth. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Lorraine. Hello, everyone listening.
Are you just bored?
It would seem that way, or hyperactive, I think, really.
Well, that's what I'm going to talk about later. First of all, we're going to talk about, how to attract and retain staff. So 30 years of tips and experience. We're going to share that. But then moving towards the end, we're also going to talk about where is there possibly room for entrepreneurship and other businesses and hobbies, and where is there room for anything else when you're managing such a business? So, Andrew, we're going to dive right in and talk about how to attract and retain the right staff. Tips and tricks after 30 years. You must have learned a few.
Very many we've learnt the hard way too.
We just can't learn it. This is why these platforms are so great, because otherwise we're just all fighting blind, making our own mistakes. But look, let's dive in. What are you've spoken before, Andrew, about some minor changes that can change your culture forever. Let's start there. Tell me about that, minor changes.
Minor changes. I think one of the big things staff want is to feel that they're not just a number or a cog in the wheel, that they're actually part of something a lot bigger and that they make a difference. Even if you've got a big company with hundreds of staff, even that one person, how can you make that person feel like they're making a difference towards the overall of the company? So that's the overall strategy. And what we've done is many things to do this, but one of the key ones we've done of late is to share the company's key performance indicators, being that sales or number of quotes done. And we've got screens around the office with the individual departments and the individual salespeople even on how they're tracking towards budget. And this is updated live every day. So as they can walk past any screen in the building, they can see, wow, I've got a bit of work to do, or I'm ahead of budget. And we feel that makes a big difference in them feeling, yes, I am contributing to something and making a difference, and not just no one cares about me.
Right. Okay. So actually, because if I would have looked at that before, I would have thought, well, it's accountability. It's in your face. It's there to remind me that I better get moving. But what you're saying is it does a bit of that, but it also makes staff feel valued and important towards the grander
thing. Yeah. I think as businesses get bigger, this is a typical thing that happens, is that they start to feel undervalued. And I don't make a difference. No one cares about me anymore. Okay. So it certainly helps towards overcoming that. And obviously an open communication style of management, I think, is important too, where they're welcome to come into your office and give feedback, like, why are we doing a procedure this way? If we did it this way, it would save 2 steps, for example, and actually listen. And if it's a great idea, act on it. And then again, that makes them feel like they're part of something bigger and they're making a difference.
So lots of conversations there around, I'm assuming as you get bigger and bigger, it must be a big chunk of your time thinking about new ways to keep that going. Because that's a full-time team job in itself.
It is, and that's the problem. A lot of the strategies take time, it's always a trade-off, isn't it? What we introduced this year was a morning tea with the director. So every the HR lady set up appointments for me about 3 to 4 a week, where the staff member would come in into my office and we'd have morning or afternoon tea, and we'd have half an hour, and we wouldn't necessarily talk so much about work, but more I just wanted to get into their private life almost and learn more about them. You know, how many kids they've got, where they live, and all those sort of things that you may have learnt when you interviewed them, but you've likely forgotten. Again, it makes them feel so that you actually care about them, which we do.
Yeah.
And that's quite an impost on your time, but it's so valuable. I got so much gold from it. And the feedback was that the staff really loved it.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, we make things so complicated in business sometimes, when really it's about, and even business relationships, where it's about being a good human.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being a good human and make people feel valued. At the end of the day, we're human beings. We need to feel important.
We do, and it's, yeah, you're dead right. It's a core human trait.
Yeah, we should have school how to be a good human. So look, that's one thing that you've done in there, you know, to change the culture. It's all about making people feel valued, making people feel appreciated, and coming up with new ideas on how to do that all the time.
Yes.
Now, Andrew, you've also another question I wanted to ask you here was, you know, because when we interview, and we've all heard of great interviewing tips, and people say, what is it they say, you know, hire slowly, fire fast, and you meet somebody and you've got the great rapport and they're ticking all the boxes when you're bringing them on, and 2 months later they're gone.
Yeah.
Why is it that some staff, you come on and they're with you forever and for life, and others are out the door as quick as they're in?
Yeah, we've got a saying at Ford and Doonan, they're either with us 6 months or 6 years. And I think it's how they actually fit into the culture of your business, and particularly the department they may be working in with their co-workers. Yeah. And the co-workers do a great job almost of filtering out the ones, rightly or wrongly, that don't fit the culture that's existing in there. And you might lose some good people, but they don't fit the culture. But the overall department is a more important thing than any star individual. So I think the staff do a very good job of it. And the people, new starters, they just get that feeling that they're not a fit in this place. And that's why and it's best that they make that decision sooner than later, so they're wasting a year of their time and yours.
Wow. So that's a core part in there. So even those couple of questions that we've spoken around, you know, culture has been brought up a few times. Where does somebody start in creating a culture? How do we know? Because everybody, when they start a business, you bring on a couple of staff and everything's great and everybody's friends. And why would there ever be an issue with culture? When do we know there's culture issues, and where do we start to address it?
Yeah, I think a common problem with the fast growing business is, as you said, when the early days, when there's the boss and maybe 2, 3, 4 employees, he knows them well and they feel part of that. As the business grows, that's when they start to feel disenfranchised from the business. So how do you create a great culture? I think a lot of fun events, we have lots of different events throughout the year. Away from the workplace, we might go 10-pin bowling. Last week we had a quiz night. You haven't heard of those for a while. So we do lots of events where you can build rapport outside of the office, and it's not all about work. And you start to build more of a friend type relationship, I guess, than just an employer-employee relationship.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. I'm sitting here with a little mental notepad and pen myself, which is awesome. So you know, staff, we can't grow without staff members. Yeah. You know,
there's a famous saying, isn't it? You can't live with them or without them.
Or was it the other one? Is you know, we would have a great business if it wasn't for my staff or my customers.
Exactly. Yeah. And one I've said to myself many times over the years, if only I could clone myself and have 10 of me, we'd be smoking this business, you know.
So look, what is it about staff and getting them on the same page as you, and your ability to grow? Your ability to grow the business? Where's the correlation there?
I think, again, sharing what the business plan even is a good start. A lot of employers have that sort of like protection feeling that this is private stuff, I'm not going to share it with the staff. And obviously you don't share everything, like your net profit, for example, but for your sales versus a budget, there's nothing really confidential in that. And again, the staff will feel like they're making a difference if they can see that let's pick a tyre business, for example. It might not even be revenue. It might be how many tyres have we changed this day or this week, and have it up on a board. So again, they're feeling like they're making a difference instead of going, oh, well, I'll just go and have another cigarette break. And no, we're 2 away from our target. Come on, guys, push on. Then you get maybe 1 or 2 of those employees who then urge on the other ones who aren't quite so keen. So you get that sort of rising up of the team.
So a lot there, and again, it's about that. How do you inspire people to be enthusiastic and motivated about what you're trying to achieve out there? And that might be a lot easier for some businesses as for others. If you've got a philanthropic, I can't even say it there, philanthropic, I can't say it, philanthropic business, people might get really excited about it. But what do we do when we're talking about, how do you do that when it's an air conditioning business, or we're selling beans? How do you get people?
Isn't it, at times in certain industries, and air conditioning is no exception. One of the big things we did a few years back was put in a net promoter score system into our service department.
Okay.
Now, that's obviously a trend many businesses have been doing. We're a bit late onto that bandwagon. What we didn't expect to happen was that once you got that sort of dashboard on your net promoter score, the NPS, they suddenly cared if we dropped 1 or 2 points. And we really didn't think they would care as much as they did. We thought it's great, for getting customer feedback, and so we can improve the business overall. But we didn't think we'd get the buy-in that we did from the staff. And suddenly they're celebrating. Look, we were up 5 points for the week or the month. So that's another key one, and it's very simple to implement.
And that comes back then, I guess, to individual achievement, because people want to feel as if they're achieving, not just contributing, but actually achieving result-setting targets. But also you have those who really want to be part of a team and get that team camaraderie. We did it.
That's right. And that's very hard to often do. And again, one bad apple in any department can, sabotage that very, very quickly. So one skill is to try to identify which one may be that bad apple in the basket, and try to move them away altogether, or out of that department at least. But another thing we do, again, that staff, especially new staff, when they've started, when they get their first one, they come to us and say, I've never heard of this happening. Every single staff member, on their birthday, we mail them a birthday card handwritten in by myself and the other director, which was quite a chore when we had 110 people. And we say, obviously, happy birthday, but it also allows you to make a note into them, say, thanks for all you contributing, you're making a big difference to the business. So we mail it to their home address strategically, so when they open it, their wife or partner may be around, or husband around, so they get to share that with the hubby or their partner. And in there, we also give them like $50 gift voucher for Bunnings, I think is what we're doing at the moment. So it's not about the gift itself. It's just about taking the time to write in that personally, and not have your secretary do it, or just be a generic one.
Wow. I mean, you've won so many awards.
Yes.
For customer service. I think, do you win one every year, Andrew?
It feels like that, isn't it? Yeah,
right.
It's great.
So, we have to learn from you, because that customer service, what you're doing, externally, you're also doing internally. Because if you weren't doing it internally with your staff or your team, you wouldn't be getting all these awards, right?
That's right. It all starts from the team. You can have the best policies, but if no one's practicing them, then obviously it's a futile exercise.
Yeah.
So that customer service has got to be lived and breathed in the organisation. And we've heard all this rhetoric from so many trainers over the years, from the States or wherever. And we do bring a lot of external trainers in. For example, we've got one breakfast coming up with the staff where we've got a customer service specialist coming in to train us on this. In fact, we've had him before, but again, you need to do it every 2 or 3 years, because there's a new breed of staff in, and the existing ones have maybe forgotten certain things. So we're always big on training. And if staff come to you and say, look, there's a course I found that I'd really like to do, if we think it's got merit for both them and the company, we'll pay for that course.
Yeah.
If it's been done out of hours, or partly out of hours at least. So we're always trying to upskill them, because everyone wants to feel like they're moving forward and not just stuck.
Yeah. What's that other saying? Train your staff like they'll. What was that one? Train them so that they could leave, but they never want to. So just
Yeah.
keep training and training and training and upskilling and
Yeah,
helping.
exactly. Because I think pay rate's about fifth or sixth out of 10 on the reasons people leave an employer.
Wow.
We all automatically think, oh, they've left for more money. But that actually is a lot lower priority than what from the surveys I've read, a lot lower priority than we may all think. Obviously, money's important, but that's not the be all end all.
Wow. So how does an organisation attract the right staff in the first place?
Yeah,
where do we start?
it's very hard, isn't it? And right at the moment in WA, of course, we've got such a skills shortage and labour shortage. We, for example, in our service department, we've got 3 vans ready to go, kitted out. We've got no one to drive them around and be service techs in them. But we're booked for 2 weeks in the middle of winter, which is unheard of. That's normally summer.
Wow.
So obviously that then affects your revenue. So it limits how much you can grow. So for that reason, we do want to attract as many as we can, which is hard at the moment, but certainly not have any leave, because that just compounds the problem. So how do we become? I think the first thing is to identify in your own head and amongst the management of the business, we want to be famous for being a place people want to work at. And that's the first step. And then from that, you create these little innovations and listening to what the existing staff may want changed. For example, I might want to go to a rostered day off a month or something like that. And if that's what they want, or it's a pretty consistent theme, then odds on someone wanting to join your company will also see that as a benefit. So listening and then implementing it to the external also makes a big difference.
Which is always hard about meeting in the middle, right? Where's the compromise from what?
Yes.
Because you must get that. Well, depending on the people who are just going to keep asking and asking and asking and asking. Well, we'd like a longer lunch, and we'd like an RDO,
Yes.
and we would like.
And some days you get so frustrated with the whole thing, as we all do as people, and staff especially. You just feel like, oh, what do I got to do here? I feel like I'm just working for them and not the actual customers. But as you pointed out, if you've got a happy workforce, they're going to display that to the world, and you'll get overall customer service levels are going to go up.
That's right. So attracting the right staff then is about identifying what's important to your current team.
Yes.
Because the people that you're bringing in are going to have to be in line, and they're going to stay around when they fit within the current team. So when you find out what's important to them, the similar values are going to attract the same kind of staff. And that's what you're talking about when you're hiring people. Right. Yes. Okay. That's a really great point.
We sponsor industry awards too, where obviously we're recruiting from our industry largely. So we like to maintain a profile in that area as well. So most people know of Ford and Doonan, but they see us supporting the industry that they are working in. Again, all these little things contribute. So there's no one or two sort of golden keys I can give away that will make all the difference. It's a series of things, and just making sure you defend that reputation of the business as a good employer, that you don't do the wrong thing by people, and you always pay out their entitlements and the obvious stuff as well.
Yeah. So when we're looking at teams, and this is where I'm just going to pick in some questions there, probably selfishly, but how do you, because you don't know, sometimes you don't know you've got a problem until the problem's been fixed and it's not there anymore, so you might think you've got a high performing team and that everything's hunky-dory, and then something shuffles around and then you find yourself in a high functioning team. Right? But what are the early warning signals of individuals and teams?
Again, back to communicating. If you communicate often enough with, obviously not daily, but you just grab one of the staff members of the department and say, grab them into your office and say, how's everything going? And they won't normally come straight out and say it. They're very protective. It's the Australian way, but with a bit of cunning EQ skills, you can normally extract that out of them, what the problem may be or who the problem may be, more the point. One of the other golden things we've introduced the last few years is exit interviews. So that's about the only time most people will honestly share, because they're on their way out the door now. Their co-workers, what were their co-workers, are no longer, and you hear the truth most of the time from an exit interview, and they are just golden. So we exit interview every single person, and then that feedback we probably treat more seriously than anything in regards to the culture of a department or the business overall.
Have you been in a position where you've had, you know, so much happening on the floor in the different departments that you've had to actually stop and say, right, we have to fix the culture here?
Yes. Yeah, we have.
Many times?
Generally, when the whole industry is sort of struggling or the economy is struggling, and therefore most businesses, including us, you know, we're not celebrating, oh, we got record sales this month. In fact, we don't celebrate that we've gone backwards, for example, but they can feel it, the staff, and that's when the culture normally starts to spiral, when they don't feel they're on a winning team anymore. And that's very hard to arrest that, you know, because if it is a bit tough, there's nothing you can really do about it. So we then become more proactive in events and that sort of thing, and just listen more at that point, get them maybe in more often for a morning tea or something.
Okay.
But
it's really, really interesting. I mean, and the importance that you're placing there of that, I'm on a winning team.
Yeah. Everyone likes to be on a winning team, don't they? Not a losing team.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think that's an important message out there, particularly, I know that's put a timestamp on this interview around COVID. You know, when a lot of businesses have been suffering, times are tough. And to look at then how they're re-engaging the staff or how they're engaging the teams in different ways to give that feeling of being in a winning team, even though they can see that the numbers or the sales are not quite matching what.
That's right. So you may take, for example, the focus away from, you know, sales, look how much we've grown, or we made budget or we didn't this month. Take the focus away from that and maybe replace the focus on that net promoter score, which is irrelevant to sales and the business's financial side of it, back to the people, and then start celebrating when the promoter score went up and who were the main contributors to that, and acknowledge and reward them. So you can just shift the focus from different things, from ones that aren't going as well to things that maybe still are.
Another thing, I don't know if you do this, or maybe I pinched it from somebody, maybe it was you years ago, Andrew, but we've got this thing, we use Teams, Microsoft Teams, and I've created a channel in there called Bravo the Bear. Right. And we pass this bear around to acknowledge people who have done exceptional work or supported each other in an organisation. It's not just for the managers, it's actually for the team to pass around this bear and say bravo. And that public recognition of, as you mentioned right off the bat, the first thing in the interview was, how do you make people feel appreciated?
Yes. Yeah.
How do you give people recognition? And that's just such a simple thing to show your gratitude and your thankfulness, and it makes such an impact.
Absolutely. And another thing we do is a years of service honor board that we've got in our reception, which are 5, 10, 15, 20, and then 30 years plus. And staff, again, it's not a big thing, but they feel proud to see that their name's on the first one and then it's moved to the second one. And probably one of the most gratifying things we find is that if people leave, many of them come back. It's a grass wasn't greener, and that makes us feel so good that, when they say, this is the best place I've worked at, and can I come back? And some have left 2 times to come back a 3rd time. So that's really great feeling to have that too. And obviously we welcome them back because they're pre-skilled already. Yeah.
Wow. And your team must feel really involved then on that winning team because of the sheer amount of awards that you guys were as well. I'm assuming that the whole company celebrates that and contributes.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Share that. And also we've got a private Facebook group that we share like client reviews, 5-star reviews, or that we share with the whole team, noting who created that, who the particular person was. Again, going your point of not acknowledging them. And that's like a private group that we can share. Like, it's a 1-year anniversary of Lorraine's start date at Ford and Doonan. So 2 years are for this person. So we're always trying to communicate and share and make even the newest people feel important.
Yeah, okay. So lots of tips and tricks in there about how to show how your gratitude and your appreciation for people and make them feel valued. Yeah. And we've also spoken about culture. How do you, what are the early warning signs that you've got the wrong person on the bus? Or again, is that all just going to come back to they're not fitting in?
It'll probably come back to not fitting in. Okay. And you can just normally, especially women are very good, more intuitive than we guys are, at just sitting back and watching the dynamics of a particular department, be it 4 or 5 people, and who's been sort of ostracized and not included. You can quickly pick up that there's sort of maybe not necessarily a bad apple, just not a fit for that person, for that particular culture. And sometimes it's a matter of moving them from one department to another and they're a better fit into another department, doesn't necessarily mean they have to go out the door. And on that same point, we also try to cross-skill different departments, because we've got an installation department, a service department, and what they do is very different day to day. But we'll grab one admin person from service and swap them with install person. What that does is two things. They've cross-skilled, so they could always go and work in that department if someone's sick or there's a long period of holidays or something. But also it builds empathy with and breaks down the interdepartment thing. Like, our service always think it's easy, or what we do, they got no idea. But when you swap them, they do have an idea, and they suddenly empathize with why you've always asked for something to be delivered in this form. Now you understand why you've been asking for that. So that cross-pollination of departments is also a really powerful one.
That's great. I mean, Andrew, that's all right. I think that, because you've got different departments, that's great, to shuffle people around. But what do you do if you're only in a team of 5 or 6 and there's someone's not a good fit? And I'm not sure, you can't just sack them and say you're not a good fit.
No, you can't. Not these days.
You can't do that these days. We could do those days, but you just can't do that. So how do you massage that?
It's a really good question. Well, what I'd suggest is probably grabbing that person that isn't the fit and just try to find out what they're feeling and thinking. And even just ask them straight, look, like, I'm observing that it doesn't look like you're fitting in quite as well as the other people do. Why do you think that is? And they'll normally come out and say it's because of this or it's because of that. Right. And based off that, you may or may not be able to rectify it. It may be something out of your hands. And that's when you sometimes have to say to it, do you think this is the right company for you to be at? Let them fall on their own sword.
And that's what it is. It's upfront, it's honesty, and people are generally honest with themselves. And if you've brought it up into the awareness and had the open conversation, then it can't be buried.
Exactly. And make it about them. Like, we want you to be happy. It looks like you're not. Tell me why you're not. So turn it back around. It's not just about the company's performance. It's about you, your performance, and your satisfaction.
And as long as you get people who are going to communicate with you, you're on a winner.
Exactly.
Look, Andrew, I've learned personally so much there, just through these little tips and tricks, through attracting and retaining the right staff. I want to talk to you about entrepreneurship and how that fits in, but do you have anything else that you wanted to say around that topic? Or
probably the only thing I'd say is we break it down into 3 areas, this whole subject of staff.
Okay.
So there's really 3 areas we break it down. It is recruitment, retention, and performance. And we try to separate them and create, incentives or key parts of each of those. And they're quite different. So yes, first, by breaking down to 3 things, it sometimes simplifies the enormity of the whole thing.
Okay. So So when you're looking at retaining someone, you're also going to look at how you marry the performance up with that.
Correct.
And your eyes and the eyes of the employee, and look at different strategies for each.
Correct. And by breaking it down to 3, you may only focus on one at the moment, might be retention. And you can forget about the other 2 for a moment and just focus on that one, as opposed to trying to focus on the whole lot. And as we know, often that just goes, it's all too hard.
Yeah. Just shut the doors. We're done.
Where's that cloning machine again?
Which wouldn't work anyway, but we can dream.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't get on with our own self.
So look, Andrew, I mean, what you've achieved is this phenomenal, and how because you're now, you've got your podcast, you've got a hobby business. You say it's a hobby business. It's a full fitness centre in South Perth, with staff in a building, and it's an actual business in our eyes. And you're also an entrepreneur trainer for business owners and CEOs and entrepreneurs who are looking to get to the next level, or and get some assistance in their business. Where does maybe that's where I'm at in my life at the minute, where you're still absolutely engrossed in the business that you've got, and it takes everything from you. Where does the management, because management is a beast in its own, management, there's management of the business, and then there's the growth of a business, and these 2 major components of sustainable business. Where is room for entrepreneurship? Where does that fit in? Does it start in the evenings, or do some people have it and some people don't? Does it? I don't know. Just tell me. It doesn't compute.
I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think, yes, some people do have it and some people don't for a start.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get swallowed by our businesses. It happens to all of us and still happens to me. And especially while the business is smaller and you might not have that middle management structure in to shield you from the day to day and you're in the firing line of everything, it's very, very hard to then get also that work-life balance and the family side of it mixed in with that just gets so complicated. So I think depending what stage your business is at, if it's very early in it, you just really have to put your nose down to the grindstone and just work hard, forget about the peripherals except for family, and just go for it. But once it's reached a certain size, and it's a very scary thing, is to try to put someone in who can at least do some of your job. Otherwise, you're never going to release yourself for the time to be able to be the entrepreneur and to think laterally and to maybe bolt on other businesses or different avenues, sales avenues. So it's I haven't got the golden answer to that one either, because I haven't mastered it all by myself, especially in the early days.
But I guess you did answer the question in that you're saying, when you start to bring on that level of management and middle management, you're not going to find a replacement for yourself. You're maybe looking for someone who can do a high percentage of your job in that management, or a high percentage of your job in the growth area. One person is not going to be you.
That's right. Yeah. So if you divide up, say you can get rid of 2/3, a third you're always going to have to do yourself as a CEO or director, paying all the bills and that sort of thing. But let's say you've got 2/3, a third you have to keep. You might spread that 2/3 across 2, 3, 4 people, even. As you said, it's a great point. He's not going to just get someone to go and do that other 2/3 like you did. But grabbing bits of it and passing it out. And the ability to do that and let go of it is one of the keys, I believe. You may have heard me say this before, is letting go and trusting your staff and accepting that they're not going to do it exactly the same as you. And it may not be to the highest standards of you, but it's good enough for what you need to achieve for a bigger objective. Yeah.
So Andrew, you've got these businesses, which is great. What really inspiring you? I know that might have changed over the years as you go on, but right now, today, what's the thing that's getting you out of bed and it's the most exciting for you?
Yeah, good question. I do love challenges. So I still haven't finished. Got so many other great ideas but it's like everyone else, I haven't got the time to spend on it, So I'm certainly not endless time. So I'm always looking for something bigger to innovate, particularly the industry that I'm most familiar with, air conditioning, and look at something nationwide. I don't know, I've already got a plan in mind on that one, and when I get the time, I'll spend more on that one. But I think it's always, I personally get a lot of satisfaction about being sort of a market leader, and to ensure that drives me to ensure that we always stay that way. And the last thing I want is to look back and go, or have people look back and go, I remember Ford and Doonan, they were really big one day, this maybe in 20 years time, and now they're just a dinosaur, irrelevant, because now a lot of businesses go that way because they don't try to keep up, they don't reinvest, and they just cruise along into retirement, and then the business is withers away. That's not what I want. I suppose I want to create that legacy that lives on for generations more, which means always be innovating, IT, putting new systems in and procedures, and software, hardware.
As you speak now, I think it must be harder to sustain it than to get there in the first place.
Yeah.
It's like the boxer with the title, you can get there, but then everybody else is fighting for it from you.
Yes, exactly. And it feels like that. Sometimes you're walking around with competitors throwing knives into your back. And in our space, who controls a builder? The builders now do so much of the air conditioning at the building stage. So if you haven't, I call it like musical chairs, the music stopped and not everyone got a chair. So the ones that haven't want your chair, your client. And sometimes I walk around looking around, I've got daggers in my back, and you're defending them whilst trying to get new ones. It's always a game. But what drives me is, I suppose, that staying and being number one.
Wow, awesome. Andrew, thank you very much again for sharing your insights, tips, wisdom. We've got loads of listeners out there who are going to see this, going to hear it. I'm really looking forward to seeing you present at the Connect Premium event again this month. You're one of the most well-received presenters, and that's because you've been there and you've done it. You're speaking from experience. So I'm really, really excited about that. Thank you very much. I have learned heaps today, as usual. And I'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.
You've been listening to District 32, immersion, inspiration for ambitious business owners with big dreams.